Welcome back to our fourth installment of Dong City. Today, February 10th, 2020, with myself, Henry Maldonado Jr., and our host, Vince Mercandetti. We have a jam-packed show for you today. Vince, take it away.
Thank you, Henry. Yes, we are back, and this might be the biggest show we can possibly have. I mean, the rundown is unbelievable. I almost feel guilty sharing it because we have so much to get to, but we'll jump right into it. So, I mean, we're going to discuss this fresh off the press, this MLB realignment that Rob Manfred, I guess, has either leaked or declared or whatever. So we're going to start with that, and then we will get to the blockbuster trades that didn't happen and happened in the past week. We're going to get to, it's going to be pretty AL East heavy just because they were involved in a lot of stuff, but we're going to hit on the Angels and Twins as well. And then we will also get to major announcements at the end that affect baseball life and affect, we'll leave it at that for now. It affects baseball life. You're going to definitely want to hear that. So as we wait for Henry's camera to come back, there we go. You're back. Let's jump into it. So Rob Manfred or the MLB office or whoever just came down the pike in the last 30 minutes or so with a radical new idea for an MLB realignment of the playoffs. It would be essentially 7 teams in each division or each league. So 14 out of the 30 MLB teams would make the playoffs. The difference being that the number 1 seed in each league would have a bye in the first round, and then 2 through 4 would pick opponents between 5 through 7, and they would play, and then that would limit it down to 4 teams, which gets you into the regular DS that we are used to. And just other fine details before I get your opinion, Henry. The selection of those matchups would be live televised, and it would be a 3-game series for the wild card round, not 1. And all 3 games would be played in one home city, which I assume would be the higher seed, the better seed. So all of that, it's a lot to digest. And Henry, for all of those watching, literally found this out like 10 minutes ago. So he's probably still consuming it. But what's your opinion on all of this? I mean, that is a radical idea to release on a Monday night.
Like you said, I just found out. I logged on and you said, "Did you get my messages?" I'm like, "No, I was driving," and you hit me with the news, and so I'm still processing it. My initial reaction is it's radical. It's gonna piss off the get off my lawn crowd. I kind of like it. I think it keeps a lot of teams interested. It keeps it'll shake up the trade deadline for sure. You know, more teams will think that they're in it. The selection show with the teams picking their opponent, that can either be a shit show or that can be.
You like that? That's flashy, right? That's up your alley.
Yeah. I mean, it just fucks with the natural order of things. You talk about strategy. You look at it. You know, say their ace pitched a couple of days before, and maybe you missed their ace. You know, maybe you pick a team who may be better on paper, but you don't see their ace. Maybe they're coming off of a bad, set of games. It'll be fun. MLB is always trying to find ways to draw in the younger generation. Something radical like this will definitely do that. I think the TV networks will eat this shit up. You know, you said they'll have a selection show. I mean, that in itself is a production.
Yeah.
I kind of like it, but I can also see it being a shit show. Right now, my initial reaction is I think I like it.
I have so many thoughts on this, and they're very mixed, and I'll try and articulate them as best as possible. My first thought, like before I thought of anything as far as competition or entertainment or anything, was, is this a segue into expansion? Because if you're allowing now 14 teams, maybe they're planning on going to 32, and maybe that's coming down the pike, which would actually make kind of more sense to me if that was the end game, is that we're going to add a team into each. We'll finally mercifully have 16 in each league, so an even number, and we're going to add 2 more playoff teams and kind of keep similar proportions. After that, I then thought, this is so stupid because my softball league is 7 teams, and this is exactly how we do the playoffs. Like, everyone makes it, top seed has a bye, and then 2 through 4 play 5 through 7. And I'm like, if my softball league's doing it, this is a stupid idea for MLB.
Well, they may be a little more organized than the beer league. I mean,
Yeah. So, and then from there, I kind of went to the like trying to form the pros and cons in my head. And on the pro side, I do think it would be entertaining. Like, I think that the selection show would draw some ratings, just like the college committee, just like, the NBA All-Star game is probably a con in the big picture, but they like started selecting teammates for the All-Star game. Like, everyone's very into selection now and like forcing you to make a decision. Like, that's basically all of ESPN's business model modern day is embrace debate. And that's what this would cause. So in a business sense, I agree with you. I think it would be very entertaining. My concerns are actually that I think we can all agree the addition of the fifth wild card, the second wild card, the fifth team, has been a good addition.
Right.
I think people were skeptical of that. You can argue whether you want it one game or three, but everyone relatively likes that fifth team making the playoffs. But my concern is you can make the argument, okay, well then expand it to seven, it's even better. But I'm looking at the history since 2012 when we introduced this.
So, give me a second. This is what happens when people don't stay on the page and pay attention. They FaceTime you. And you end up on the baseball podcast with Hardy, Vince, and Henry. If he just paid attention to the damn schedule, he'd see us. So now he's going to see himself.
He even got a personal invite to listen and watch the show, said he would do it, and then he's trying to interrupt my co-host. Just the unbelievable.
Look, listen to this shit. Hold on. Go ahead.
I wanted to see how instant this thing is.
I'll call you when I'm done.
Unbelievable. So to finish up that thought, my concern is that since 2012, we've had three teams who won a wild card and made the World Series, which in my opinion is great because it proves that the one-game wild card really is a deterrent. You want to win your division, but it also allows more teams to make the playoffs. So it's kind of a win-win. And my concern, and 2014 is when it all started. 2014 was when we had two of those three. The only other team to make the World Series as a wild card was last year's Nationals, who won the World Series.
What they did.
Yeah, so I love how things are right now, and I don't know for sure if now having seven teams makes it harder or easier or worse. Is it worse for the one seed because they're on a bye now?
And all of that is part of the strategy. I don't want to shit on it right away because when the wild card was announced, everyone hated it. The press hated it, fans hated it, everyone hated it, and now we love it. We added a wild card team. The wild card, the playing game itself is exciting as it comes. Win or go home. I mean, we love it. So I think this is something that, when it comes to baseball is like no other sport where people hate change. Right. Until they get the change and they're like, oh shit, this is pretty cool. This is nice, That's
the line you have to straddle in baseball. It's very, very against change of any kind. And a lot of the change that's happened has been good for the game. And I think personally, like robot umps and more technology will be good for the game, minus the whole scandal aspect of it. So like I'm totally about innovation. My concern is that I think particularly the selecting of teams it's cheap. And MLB doesn't need to go to that level. It's not like it's not the XFL where they have like these gimmicks to draw ratings. Like MLB doesn't need to do that. I know it's trying to appeal to a younger audience, but I think that's a little too gimmicky for me. So maybe above anything else, that's my biggest problem is that rule, if it happens.
Yeah, I'm looking at the comments and we have a few comments. Rob mentioned that hockey goes to 7 teams and we know how exciting playoff hockey is.
I think hockey is 8.
Is it 8?
Yeah, 8 each.
8 each. Okay, so
but there's 32 teams.
Felipe is saying cut back spring training, start regular season before March 20th. So he wants winter baseball.
Yeah, so this is another thing too. You're adding possibly 2 more playoff games. As it is, most seasons we leak into November anyway. Yeah. You have the World Baseball Classic on the front end, which is another handful of games.
November.
Which again, I personally love the World Baseball Classic. I think it's gaining steam and it's been really great. And USA won, so now I could finally be proud of it.
They needed Puerto Ricans to win, but that's another show.
Yeah.
So, everyone knows my take on that, but
But I do kind of agree with a lot of the comments. We're going to have to shorten the regular season, I think, probably back to like 154 like it used to be to accommodate all of this, or else it just
even 147. I mean,
back it up even more.
Yeah.
My wife will be listening shortly.
I think Yoshi likes it.
Yeah. So the last thing I thought about, just to add some Dong City flair to this, is that the Yankees may never miss the playoffs ever again if they add this rule.
I agree. I mean, the Yankees missed the playoffs to begin with, but
yeah, I don't think with a winning record, and I haven't looked this up yet. If anyone wants to go through the trouble, please be my guest. I don't think, I mean, the Yankees have had a winning record every year since 1992. Mm-hmm. I would imagine that's a top 7 record every single year since 1992.
Yeah, we need a stat boy or a producer, perhaps.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about that later. We definitely need a producer because you've got, the only years the Yankees have actually missed the playoffs, as we know, are 2008, 2013, 2014, 2016. And I would be curious if in those 4 years they had a top 7 record and would have still made the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And that's an interesting thing with the CBA, because this would happen after the CBA is renegotiated and agreed to. Would this help or hurt big market teams?
I think it would help them.
Yeah. So
yeah,
there seems to be a cry
there has to be
more to hurt them.
There's got to be a reward for the players, whether it be more time off. I don't think you can tie a financial aspect to it somehow, but
yeah, my Yankee comment has gotten the exact reaction I was expecting from the comment section. not many fans of it. So anyway, so that's
the flip side to it is you, like I said, you have teams who are right there. They're not sure if they're buyers or sellers, and they say, hey, we have a chance. The Nationals did it, The Nationals were what, 1 strike away from being eliminated in the wild card game?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It'll keep teams in, it'll keep fans of those teams and except Pittsburgh, because we can just do away with the Pirates, but
yes, we can easily get rid of at least 2 teams. Yeah. The other thing too
Pirates put a team in Puerto Rico and call it a day.
Been lobbying that for that. Hey, if they use the World Baseball Classic hats, I would be totally on board, because those are easily the best hats.
I was this close to wearing that hat today.
Yeah, you should have. I have my.
The problem is the only World Baseball Classic shirt I have is I have 2, Correa and Beltran, and right now that's not such a good look.
Yeah, that's a rough combo, right?
I'd have to bring a garbage can and wrap it in the Puerto Rico colors. It's just,
arrest yourself. I know that's a lot going on. The one other note on it is this would so fuck with the trade deadline.
Yeah.
I don't no one would be a seller, I feel like. And maybe the 2 teams that are could just rip off everyone, which maybe that's part of the design. I don't know.
Yeah, it totally fucks the trade deadline. Maybe the flip side is you have more moves.
Yeah, or you make the deadline September 1st, because then they already back it up 2 weeks. Now you'd have to back it up even further, and you're getting rid of the roster expansion.
You can't push the deadline back anymore, because then you start interrupting value.
I agree.
The shorter time teams have a player, the less value there is.
Can you imagine a 1-month rental? They just take the Mets last year at the deadline. If the deadline was September 1st, they trade for Stroman and don't make not Stroman, but a rental, and they don't make the playoffs, and they just had 1 month of employment.
The other thing is, I wonder how it impacts financially, more another 3 games for the networks.
Yeah.
More concessions, more gates, more parking for the owners. There's a financial aspect to this.
Playoff shares to the players, which is probably going to be one of the bargaining chips MLB will use to try and get this approved.
I'm interested to see what the collective bargaining is going to be for this.
Yeah, it should be interesting. They seem to be introducing a lot of ideas, and last I left off, and my feeling still is it's going to be a very brutal CBA negotiation.
I don't think we'll see a strike. There's just way too much money being made to interrupt the season.
Got $10 billion on the line.
13, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it up? Wow. All right. Yeah. So there you go. So we'll have to monitor this closely as we head into the season. I don't know if it'll necessarily resurface a lot, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And that may have not even been the biggest thing to impact MLB this week.
Yeah.
So we had a crazy, possibly unprecedented trade situation this week in that the Dodgers and Red Sox, take two, had a trade, and I say take two dating back to the 2012 trade the first time around. The Red Sox
trade.
Yep. The Red Sox trade originally Mookie Betts and about half of David Price's salary to the Dodgers. The Dodgers originally were going to send Alex Verdugo to the Red Sox. The Twins got involved because they were going to receive Maeda from the Dodgers. They were going to send Gatterall. Yeah, Gatterall, their prospect, to the Red Sox. And then on a side trade, the Dodgers were going to send Jock Peterson to the Angels for a couple of prospects, right? Renfigo and I can't pronounce his name, and someone else. So, and Stripling was also going to go in that deal.
Stripling was going to
the Angels.
Yes.
Yeah, and the Angels were going to send. I can't remember there's like some prospects too kind of mixed into this. But anyway, that deal fell apart because the Red Sox, in my opinion, were afraid of the PR hit. Chaim Bloom, or whatever his name is fresh into the job. He's never dealt with a big market before. He trades the best player in his first winter in a year that Red Sox fans are already disenchanted with how the team's going to perform. They've got this investigation going on. They have no manager named. And then he goes and makes this trade and just gets hammered. I mean, not a single Red Sox fan I talked to loved the deal in its entirety. They liked the idea of trading Betts, some of them, but they didn't like the return. And the ones who were, and then there were some who were just totally against trading Betts in the first place. So
I mean, the problem with that is that Betts is getting $27 million. So it's not like you're trading, a super cost controlled guy. You still have $27 million involved in that trade.
Yeah, and we talked about that, several times here on this show in Dong City. We said the Mookie Betts market is not going to be what people think it's going to be. There just aren't that many teams who can absorb 27 million, who have a spot for an outfielder, who require that offensive bet and have the prospects to send to the Red Sox and are competing where they would want to acquire Betts for a rental. It's not like a starting pitcher where every team could theoretically use one.
I actually think their return was pretty decent.
So now let's talk about that. Now they redo the deal. Everyone backed out. Now everyone except the Angels backs in. And Maeda still goes to the Twins. They still send Gatterall, this time to the Dodgers.
Gatterall goes to the Dodgers.
Yeah, not the Red Sox. So he goes to the Dodgers.
That, I think, is what made this deal even better. The Dodgers somehow got better. When the deal fell apart, they were like, oh, shit, what are they going to do? You kind of knew Mookie was still going because the Red Sox couldn't go back and say, well, Mookie's staying with us. That's just a bad PR hit.
Yeah, and Price.
Mookie was going, but for them to get Gatterall with Mookie, I mean, that's a steal.
Yeah.
They got a potential closer. They got a huge arm in the back end of that bullpen to close games. Dodgers got better.
That's what confused me. So the Red Sox backed out allegedly because they felt that the medicals said that he's almost definitely going to be a reliever as opposed to a starter, which you look at any scouting report on the dude, and that was already public knowledge.
Right. I mean, the Twins viewed him as a reliever.
Yeah.
Dodgers view him as a reliever. So Boston was trying to get cute and extract what they thought was starting pitching value until they said, oh, this guy's a reliever, which I kind of call bullshit on that. I think they knew the risk. I think they just decided that, hey, we got slammed in the media and by the fans, and we want to do over it. So that's what they got. So fine, water under the bridge. They get Jeter Downs, who is a better prospect to me than what they previously had. And they had Connor Wong. I don't know. He's the throw-in third piece, if you will, catching prospect, which helps. But to me, the Red Sox absolutely needed to get a stud pitcher back in this deal because they've got very, very little on their pitching staff. And it made sense with Gatterall. You could have had him as your closer. You could have then put Eovaldi as a starter. And at least then you've got, Martin Perez, who knows how good he's going to be, but you've got Eovaldi, Erod, and Sale. And at least that is 4 guys you can kind of pencil into the rotation. And then you hope next year with all this money coming off the books, you can go grab another one. They could have been fine, but now you don't have that. Eovaldi either has to be your closer or a starter, but now you don't have the closer if he's your starter.
So
They're all over the place. That
yeah,
team was a mess before the trade. They're a bigger mess after the trade.
yeah, it's a thin rotation and it's a thin bullpen. And if you talk to Sox fans, yes, Rick Porcello sucked every other year, but he ate 200 innings,
Yeah.
which in that rotation is huge. And now they don't have him either because he's on the Mets. So to me, it's going to take longer than a year to build that pitching staff back up.
You
I just
also
don't
take
see it.
the biggest star that Boston has seen in I don't know how long. I mean, who you have? David Ortiz,
Yeah,
Manny. The fan started to Saiwan Manny, Nomar. I mean, Mookie was a superstar, and Mookie's
beloved.
going to be a superstar in LA. And I don't think Mookie leaves LA. I think Mookie goes to LA. He signs an extension. Eventually, and I don't think he leaves LA. It's like I've been saying, it's Carl Crawford 2.0.
Yeah, I was trying to think of this. You got the Dodgers. I could see the Padres getting involved. Maybe the Angels are still have bitter tastes after this offseason in their mouth. They go really hard after Mookie. You've got the Phillies, that Trout money, maybe still somewhere, trying to give it to Mookie instead. And other than that, though, maybe there's maybe the Rangers, if they really have a nice, productive season this year. Maybe the Astros to replace Springer. There's not that many teams out there, though. So Dodgers is a good bet.
Yeah, the other side to it, which you mentioned, is the LA deal, which is why I say LA Dodgers got better because they got to keep Jock Peterson.
Yeah, and Stripling.
Yeah,
Who's starter number
they
8.
got rid of the Maeda and they kept Stripling instead because they needed to get rid of one of the pitchers.
Yeah.
Then what they did was, in the middle of all this mess, Peterson is having an arbitration hearing, which in itself was a mess because they didn't know if the Dodgers or the Angels were going to go on their behalf. So they were trying to get an extension, his handlers, which when I heard them on the radio made sense because they didn't know how to present their case. The Dodgers mainly use him as a platoon guy. Maybe he goes to the Angels and he's not a platoon guy. He's an everyday guy. But
yeah,
what happened is he took a loss. So he's got 7.75 was awarded to him.
Yeah, I think
so he's getting
right.
less money. So his value goes up. And I think the Angels were hitting a home run with that trade. I don't know why Artie Moreno, the reports are Artie Moreno backed out because he was pissed off. Dude, shut up, let it play out, and you win this trade hands down. They were giving up if you look on that depth chart, the guy that were giving up was the third second baseman on their depth chart.
Yeah, no,
you're getting the pitching you desperately need, and you're getting Jock Peterson.
This is if you look at the upside and the downside, this might be one of the worst off seasons ever for a team if you're the Angels.
Yeah.
They could have had Cole, they could have had Jock Peterson, they could have had Stripling, who's 30, but his arm is 24 if you look at his innings. And they don't have they didn't get anyone. They didn't get Wheeler, they didn't get Ryu.
Would have been a home run for the Angels. That would have been what that team needed, the pitcher, and they don't need more offense, but you've given them more offense and defense. And
they got Dylan Bundy.
Yeah,
that might be their best player of the offseason. And they were going after Cole, the juggernauts of this winter. They struck out on every single one.
Let me read this lineup to you because Peterson stays with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
This is a potential lineup. You have Betts, Muncy, Turner, Belly, Jock, Seager, Lux, and Smith.
Yeah, it's sick.
That's ridiculous.
Imagine if you were allowed a DL. I mean, DH. You were the Dodgers.
That's a hell of a line. I think Mookie does have to lead off there, but that's a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, Chris Taylor, maybe their most improved dynamic player in 2018, and he's not even a starter anymore.
He's going to play around.
And Max Muncy was created in a lab to just replace everything he did, and now they get him to a pretty good deal in an extension.
Yeah, that lineup is sick.
Yeah, it is. It's we'll see how the Dodgers do, but if you told me, hey, we'll give you David Price, who at least, is going to give you 150 veteran innings and start a playoff game for you, and we're going to give you Mookie Betts for a year, and you can hold on to Gonsolin, May, and Lux, you could have taken any other prospects from that system, I would have done that deal. And we're going to pay for half of price. So he's actually at market value for what his actual worth is.
The Dodgers came off lovely here.
Dodgers win that deal. I think the Red Sox got better value with Jeter Downs, but I think they're worse off for it with the redo.
They always wanted their own Jeter.
What's that?
They always wanted their own Jeter.
Yeah, no, they get a little envy there. And then the Twins, they got Maeda, which is a nice move for
I
them.
like that a lot for
Um,
them.
I still don't. I'll never take them seriously until they at least win 2 games in a round against the Yankees.
You're not going to take them serious until they beat the Yankees, but that
No,
team
I
on
won't.
paper is still stacked.
Yeah, no, it's a great team on paper. It's a team that will probably win 100 games again, unless they pull one of these like on again, off again
Yeah,
years, like after they fired Molitor, and then they'll lose to the Yankees in 3 games. It's just that's how it is. That's the Twins.
yeah, I
So
think I see some comments here. We have Felipe said the Dodgers are guaranteed to win 105 games. I don't disagree with that.
yeah, that's
Joey
about.
says
They
in
won
the first round
105 last
knockout.
year.
Huh?
Didn't they win 105 last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Joey says
they didn't get worse.
Joey's predicting a first round knockout in a couple of the comments. I don't see it, but
Yeah, I did forget, by the way, glaring omission on my part. The Angels did sign Rendon, which I would probably rank sixth or seventh in terms of the guy they should have signed this winter.
well, can he pitch?
Right. That's there. I would have signed probably 3 or 4 pitchers or traded for them before I would have signed Rendon. Great bat, but 29 and
They could have
plays a
signed two
corner
pitchers
infield.
and traded for Arenado. I mean, it's all in hindsight, but
Yeah. So yes, they did. They did get one guy. I was wrong. Total brain fart, but it's not the guy I would have wanted. Just like the Red Sox, I would have signed. I would have demanded a pitcher in that deal. So anyway, that's the fallout of these trades. It was a blockbuster that wasn't. It was a blockbuster that was, and a lot of teams who are relevant are different now. Dodgers, Twins, Red Sox, Angels, all affected by this. And speaking of the Red Sox, one other note on them: it looks like they're going to hire Ron Reinke as their manager. He's their current bench coach. That's the same sort of vanilla move that Dusty Baker is for the Astros. It's obviously a 1 year deal for me. There's no way that either of these guys are going to manage in 2021.
it's a stopgap.
Yep.
I'm surprised they went there though because they still are under investigation, and you don't know what it's going to turn up. So I thought staying in house is a little risky because you don't know what an investigation is going to turn up.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine something comes up and they got to get rid of him. I mean,
well, if we know MLB, they're going to pin it on Alex Cora and pretty much only Alex Cora just to avoid that situation. And no players are obviously going to be harmed. That's already been guaranteed. I see Sean Razor just joined like 10 minutes too late. We just praised the Dodgers for like 10 minutes. Now he gets on.
he was using his walker to get to the computer.
Yeah. And Joey, you're right. Like I said, the Red Sox didn't have the market for bets. But yeah, so Reinke, new manager over there. The Mets have their manager in place. Astros have their manager in place. So that saga is officially behind us. Speaking of managers, we had this other documentary that comes out, or interview, I guess, with AJ Hinch.
Oh, what a shit show!
Did you watch that? I saw like segments. I actually didn't watch it in its entirety. It's bad for my health.
About a 30-minute interview, and Verducci, who I think is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
He teased it earlier in the day, saying, he thinks AJ was contrite and he was open and honest and very forthcoming. So I was looking forward to it, and it was bullshit.
The complete opposite, right?
It was bullshit. He was asking him some softball questions, which I get. And when he asked him directly about the buzzing system, he had an opportunity to come clean, and he said, well, MLB did their investigation and they didn't find anything. That wasn't the question.
Yeah, a little dope.
Verducci done a better job there of hammering him and just, keep on bringing it home. And he let him off easy there. I think this was a PR stunt to make him look better. And somehow he looks worse. He didn't take, any real accountability. You have guys in baseball that they say, hey, he's a guy that's going to take it for his team. Those guys don't praise themselves. And yet he's here saying, hey, I'm the kind of guy that takes everything for my team. So this is why I'm doing. No, you're doing it to save your ass. Yeah. And I haven't heard anyone take any accountability for this yet.
I was going to say, can you imagine the dong sack on Rob Manfred this past week when you're like, hey, I'm not gonna punish any players from either of the teams that we're investigating right off the bat. Like, regardless of what we find, they're okay because they're the ones testifying. As if he couldn't like get any information without granting them immunity. Like that had to be the first step. And on top of that, he's like, we're going to make these managers and GM roles the scapegoats. We're going to put in stopgap managers, so it opens the door for them to get rehired in some capacity right back to where they were going to go. And on top of that, like, we're going to try and sweetheart it with AJ Hinch, so like everyone wants to hire him again in the future, and there's no sort of ban on that because he's only suspended for a year. Like, and then after all of that, he's like, and here, by the way, this is a radical realignment we have in mind. Like,
and AJ still trips over himself.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, and then AJ Hinch screws it up, just like he has been this entire winter. I don't know if Astros PR like is still helping him, but that's kind of the impression that I get because it was so botched. But just unbelievable. Like Rob Manfred just doesn't know when to lay low and like stroke himself alone. He's gotta just interfere with everything all the time.
I mean, he's gotta make his own mark in the game,
Yeah, and by the way, based on that interview, if you didn't believe it from the other like 700 things that hinted to it, the Astros have cheated 2017, 2018.
Oh yeah, it was more than 1 year. Yeah, I mean, he all but acknowledged that the buzzing system happened. By not, like Chris said, by not denying it, it was a glaring, hey, okay, we fucked up.
Yeah, like point blank. Did you use buzzers? It's a yes or no.
I didn't get a chance to read it. There was something that came out that Luna had an app.
Yeah, so that was another addition to it. They had like their front office had an app that decodes catching signals.
Yeah. And he developed it.
Yeah, and this was totally blessed all up the chain. So as far as I'm concerned, their entire, you really want to handle it, their entire front office should have been fired. They're all complicit, but, apparently just the GM and the assistant GM and the manager is good enough. It's just such a bad spot for MLB in my mind.
I think some players should have got penalized, but
yeah, this is a slap, the lightest of slaps on the wrist that you can possibly do.
Something that I also think will be addressed in the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's very similar to me as what we got with steroids. They screwed it up completely the first time around punishing steroids. It was like a 10-game suspension or something if you got caught with steroids. And then they were like, oh, shit, everyone's still doing it. Let's make it like 40 or whatever it was. And they're like, oh, shit, everyone's still doing it. Let's do 80. And now they're like, oh, and this guy did it twice. Like, let's add, like, it's just like they need to have their hand held every step.
Manny Ramirez got caught at each level.
Yeah, Manny's like, oh, half a season vacation? Perfect. Let me just go roid things in my ass. And then they're like, oh, and maybe you shouldn't be allowed to compete in the playoffs if you've been cheating. Like, it's just all of these things are so slow.
I hope we don't get to a point where it's like the NFL, where the NFL commissioner has unilateral authority. And I think if you do that, that'd be a huge mistake.
Yeah, like anything, whether it's sports or government or anything, there should be checks and balances. Like that's just how you run a very powerful organization of any kind, whether it's a country or a team. I mean, so
for decades, they've been trying to find ways to get around the power that the MLB Players Union has. So
yeah, and if it does get dirty, MLB will win. I mean, the owners always win somehow.
Follow the money.
But if MLB players were smart, they would try and really lobby for minimum salaries to go up dramatically and less control, which they'll never get. But they should argue that should be the hill they're willing to die.
Salary cap.
Yeah. You want the salary cap? Fine. We're free agents after 3 or 4 years. That was my
impression of the SpongeBob meme.
It's not bad. Oh, man. So two other pieces of news. AL East very busy in like indirect ways. There was a trade that almost went completely undetected that I actually find very interesting.
Yeah.
With all of this other stuff, and that is that the Rays traded Emilio Pagan for Margot from the Padres. And this is like the second time they've done something like this winter. And I kind of, on paper, it looks like a bad deal for the Rays because Pagan's such a good reliever, but I kind of feel like it's going to work out for them.
The Rays are doing what the Rays do. They're extracting value. This was a deal for me that is about run prevention.
Yeah.
You're adding Kevin Kiermaier 2.0 to that team. Probably with a better bat, more upside. I would be surprised if they don't trade Kiermaier now.
I was going to say this opens the door for me at more value by getting rid of
Because
Kiermaier.
I mean, right now, Manny Margot, Kevin Kiermaier, and Hunter Renfroe had a combined 41 defensive run saves last year. That leads the league.
Yeah.
Those guys are going to save a ton of runs.
You don't hear, I mean, we know that their front office is brilliant, but you just don't hear about how they're using their analytics compared. Like the Astros were like this giant system where we were like, we know they're cutting edge because they'll tell anyone who listens about it. But the Rays are like right there with them. And we don't really know much about like what they're using to analyze this stuff, but it's working. And they have like, they could grow relievers on trees. So they just use them and they disperse them throughout the league and they get all this value back with control. And that seems to be the model that's working. And it's just like Joey said, you got to raise an eyebrow with Rays moves. And like Sean said, I can't think of something that's ever backfired for them.
Like I said before, I'll say it again. That's the smartest front office in baseball. Their talent evaluators are second to no one.
Oh, if you're looking at payroll compared to product, it's not a competition.
Moneyball should have been made about the Rays.
Yeah, and it'd make a great Disney movie because it's Florida. So
it's about the only thing Florida gets right.
They got the rookie, wasn't he on the Devil Rays? That movie about like the 40-something-year-old. Yeah.
The Rays are like I said, that front office is always, God forbid they make money.
Mm-hmm.
If they were ever, a team to spend money, would be in trouble.
The Rays are the perfect, like if you just want to lazily troll someone who's a small market truther and thinks like small market's getting it rough, you just bring up the Rays. Yeah. They're the Pirates, but are a contender like year in and year out, pretty much.
You know how I feel about the Pirates. Sorry, D, but
they're so awful. What an embarrassment. Rob Manfred should be their owner. Just put them all somewhere.
Let Bud Selig run them like he did Milwaukee.
Yeah. How God, just the corruption of MLB commissioners over the years is like second to none. Every sport says that about their commissioner, though. Speaking of shitty owners, we'll just jump right into this. The Mets will continue to keep theirs because that deal fell through with Steve.
Dude, they had a savior.
Yeah.
I actually felt good for the Mets fans. They had a savior. They had somebody pockets who wanted to spend money, and the Wilpons being the Wilpons fucked that up.
Here's a life preserver. Oh, let me go run it over with my lawnmower.
I was actually excited for the Met fans. I really was. You know what? You see a big market team. They make a shitload of money. They have a gorgeous stadium. They have a loyal fan base. Give them a fucking owner that gives a shit.
Yeah.
And
worked for the Dodgers.
When the sale was first announced, it was like, all right, damn, they have control for 5 more years. All right, fine. We'll tough it up. Then they wanted more and more. Cohen said, fuck you. And apparently, I read something that it may put him in jeopardy for owning another team because he broke some disclosures.
Of course, he gets punished in this scenario. Not the guys who were in the Madoff scheme and should have been kicked out of baseball then for needing loans from MLB just to afford the team. But it's the guy who's willing to actually improve that franchise to where it should be. He's the one who's going to get punished.
The Wilpons are everything you don't want in a fucking owner. I'll take Dolan over the Wilpons.
No. That's where I'm willing to draw the line. I think the Wilpons are probably the second worst owners in baseball and maybe top 5 in sports. But that's where
I think they're the worst.
How are they worse than Bob Nutting? I mean, Bob Nutting had a contender and just destroyed
they're in New York. They make a shitload of money. The Pirates don't have a loyal fan base the way the Mets do.
But they would if they didn't destroy their team constantly, and they're like a top 10 market or whatever. Like Pittsburgh's no slouch.
The Mets get general managers, for all the shit Omar Minaya got. He brought a shitload of talent onto this team. He got free agents here. Sandy made some moves. They brought talent. They did things, and the Wilpons always fuck it up.
Yeah. But at least they hire people who are competent once a decade.
Yeah, even now that they're not buying talent, they're making trades. They're trading their farm to acquire money to acquire arms. They're not buying any free. There was a ton of free agent pieces they could have used, but the Wilpons are holding the purses. Meanwhile, you have Cohen over here willing to spend to make this team better, and they just screw it up like they do everything.
Yeah, it's amazing. They should have been kicked out with Frank McCourt. I mean, a messy divorce to me is so much more forgivable.
I'm reading Joey's comment. It says, if a purge ever comes to light, the Wilpons and Dolan are on my list.
I would be right there with him with Dolan. That's a good argument. I didn't realize people were so passionate about it, but who's a worse owner, the Wilpons or James?
The Wilpons.
Look, the Mets have made the championship this century.
In spite of him.
But they still made it.
At least James Dolan brings people in and tries something, the Wilpons are just the absolute worst, man. The Mets fans deserve better than that guy.
They do, absolutely. And I'll tell anyone who listens, because sometimes, not often, but sometimes I get accused of being a Mets hater, and it couldn't be further from the truth, because I would really love for them to be relevant in the NL, because I like when New York teams are not shitty. They don't affect me, but I like that there's another New York team over there.
You're in Florida. Let me tell you how it goes down in New York. When both
I'm
teams
sure it's awful.
Dude, when both teams are winning, it's a troll fest. You get on the train, you have your Yankee gear on, the other guy has a Mets gear on. You kind of look at each other. This guy did that last night. This guy, we'll see. It's fun. The Subway Series is fun. I don't care what the final score is. Those games are fun. The city is buzzing when both teams are in competition.
That should be the case. But right now it's like awful because Mets fans still kind of troll on occasion, and it's like stop, do something, and that's embarrassing.
Oh, their ownership, that shit is ridiculous.
Yeah, they need new owners. I, as a Yankee fan, would be the first one to lobby for it if there was ever a petition or something where I had control, and so should everyone else, because shitty owners make the sport worse. That is so much worse than any sort of payroll argument you can make. Is you have a shitty owner, it doesn't matter how much your payroll is, you're just shitty.
I agree. It would suck because to get an owner's attention, you got to hit them in the pockets.
Yeah.
And you stop going to games, you stop buying merchandise, you stop tuning in. The Mets have a very, very loyal fan base, and that will never happen.
No, that's sad. Yeah, it's sad for them. And speaking of New York teams without shitty owners, especially this offseason, because Mr. Steinbrenner opened his pockets finally to Yankees fans' delight. Not necessarily my delight, although I'm delighted to have Garrett Cole.
And we can stop hearing the "if George was here" bullshit.
Yes, my God. If I hear one more George is rolling over in his grave, I'm actually going to dig him up and chop him up just so he cannot roll physically in one form in his grave.
We can freeze him.
Like Ted Williams' head.
Special, yeah.
I like that. Yankees had a bit of news, no trade stuff. They still are at a $258 million payroll. All of this displeases me. But James Paxton, in a bit of bad luck, is out for 3 to 4 months. Scott Boras kind of claims it's on the 3-month end. It's James Paxton, so I'm not really inclined to believe him. But it looks like Paxton will be back sometime in June, I think is probably a safe bet. Now, this doesn't really hurt the Yankees that much right now because they just plug Happ into that 5th spot and it's fine. Or I'm sorry, they plug Happ into the 4th spot. You plug Montgomery into the 5th spot. These are all major league guys who are experienced, so not really a problem. Where the problem comes in is inevitably in spring training, if someone gets hurt and Herman is not back from his suspension yet, you have that little side. But even then, they've got King and kind of that ilk.
Yeah, we have guys that we can call up, just to eat innings. The first month is always, 4 starters instead of 5 anyway.
I think it's more unnerving. Yeah, it's a good point. I think it's more unnerving than anything that Paxton already has a major injury. But if he can be recovered,
it doesn't bother me that guy's arm is electric. The timing of it sucked, and it's Brian Cashman being Brian Cashman. He's coy. Everyone's wondering why we didn't trade Happ. We talked about why the hell haven't you traded Happ yet? It's too many teams. And Cashman, to his credit, has always said we need depth, and we have it. So Paxton goes down. Plug Happ in there. Montgomery's coming back. I think it's fine. We'll probably trade Happ at the deadline anyway. Yeah. If I'm the Yankees, I'd still put a decent extension in front of Paxton. That guy's arm is just too good.
Paxton or Tanaka, I think, are definitely getting an extension. One of the two, not both. And I think that DJ will too. That'll eat into a lot of the money
Tanaka
that's coming
scares
off.
me. I think the minute you give Tanaka the extension, he'll finally need that Tommy John surgery. That's just
They're
the way
both
it
a
is.
risk. That's why I'd only commit to one of them. But Paxton has the bigger upside, which appeals to me more.
And Tanaka has the October cachet because
Right. So it's kind of
I'm
a
okay with him on the mound. I don't give a shit how his season was.
that's what's going to decide it. If Tanaka stays healthy and has a big October, obviously he's the guy. If Paxton comes back and has a big October and Tanaka doesn't stay healthy, I think he's the guy. I don't think that's decided yet. I think they're going to see how the season goes. But you can bet Judge is probably getting extended and DJ is probably getting extended another couple years, and one of them is probably also getting extended. And then you're looking at the rest of the money probably just coming off payroll. So this 2021 Yankee team is going to look very similar to the 2021.
Yeah, I think like I
Minus
said,
a couple guys.
the Yankees are loaded to absorb that kind of hit.
Yeah. And then we'll see what happens with the collective bargaining agreement after that. So, yes. And as we've argued since the beginning of time, the Angels should have been trading for Happ, but now he's apparently off the market for the time being until the Yankees kind of have their starters in a row. So all of that said, Yankees are probably still the favorite. With the Rays trade, they're probably still second. I don't think the Red Sox trade makes them fourth necessarily, although I'm interested to see how that Blue Jays core takes a step this year with Ryu over there as well. I still would say Red Sox are a third place team. So I don't think anything really changed in the AL East, but definitely a bunch of pieces got moved around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on to our final two segments here. We promised some big updates. And now that we've exhausted all of the baseball talk, this stuff actually affects you guys directly in baseball life. I'm going to let Henry, you take it away as far as our first update, and then I'll kind of cover the second one. We'll go from there.
So the first update, and we should have tested this before this screen sharing. I'm going to you tell me.
I meant to ask you about that.
Yeah, if it does not work, I'm printing one now. But we've been working with a graphic artist, and we've been working behind the scenes to get our name trademarked and a logo copywritten for us. And the trademark is in the works. And right now we will unveil the official Baseball Life logo. So I'm going to hit the split screen and let's see if it works. You tell me if it works or not.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, my MacBook doesn't want to work right now with this.
Well, let me ask you a few questions while you get to this.
Go ahead.
What inspired us to have a logo?
Well, we've gotten so big, so big and so popular, and everyone wants more. The groups have gotten out of control. We were working with a campaign with Facebook, pardon me, a More Together campaign with Facebook, where we went to LA. We shot a commercial. Actually, I just spoke to them last week, and it should be debuting soon, which our group will be featured on, which was pretty badass and pretty cool. And we just, this baseball group has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And, we love one another and we have fun. We occasionally get the troll here or there, but we have a lot of fun, and we just decided to go with it. And we have our own, we make our own brand. We're going to start making hats and t-shirts and, bring them to you guys. But here is our official logo. I hope you guys like it. This will be the cover page for a little while.
There it is.
We have a few variations of color.
You want to tell us about this logo? Is the player based on anyone? Is the swing based on anyone? Give me your thoughts on it.
I cannot legally
it is based on someone, but you can't say who.
I cannot confirm that this is the silhouette of any particular baseball player. I cannot confirm that, but this is a popular baseball silhouette. And the number 17 represents the year that we started Baseball Life.
Yes.
Because we thought of a few other numbers, but I think 17 is the best number to go with.
And I think to kind of illustrate your point, we had, when this group started, I believe 200 and something members kind of started it. You know, they were like the first.
Yeah.
We are now at, in 3 years, no, less than that, 2.5 years, we are at over 4,000 members now. We just had 4,000 like last week. This past week, we had over 100 members just this week alone. Yeah, keep showing that.
In case people can't see it.
We, so I mean, we're growing very rapidly. 4,000 is not a lot when you think of groups that have like 100,000, but the difference, the life group difference, is that our 4,000 members, about 75% of them, I don't know how well any of you go into Facebook analytics, but about 75% of them are active.
Yeah.
We're getting, like I said, about 100 a week with this life group thing. We saw for pop culture, it doubled the population overnight. So with baseball, you're talking about in the thousands. We may be seeing a giant influx again. It's growing very fast, and we have only all of you to thank for it. It's, you know, you guys make the group.
Yeah.
And so this logo, you know, I know you're very passionate about, Henry, and, you know, now we kind of have that identity to go with everything.
We've been working behind the scenes. You know, I've shared with the baseball admin team, and they know how excited I was in getting this done. It is our logo. We did hire a graphic designer, therefore we own the rights to it. Copyright is in process for it. So it's ours. This is, you know, beautiful. This group means a lot to me. It means a lot to all of you. I can't tell you the number of friends I've met, people I've met in person. You know, my dad passed and you guys stepped up for me, and we've done the same for other people in the group who've had personal tragedies. But that is the life group difference. You know, our group is diverse. You know, we have old people, we have young people, we tease each other, but at the end of the day, we are one big dysfunctional fucking family, and it works beautifully. So I just wanted to show another variation of it in red, white, and blue for Puerto Rico. I mean, for the United States. This is another version of our color. We do have a few color schemes that we have, but we will make that our group photo for quite a bit. And yeah, we're excited for the next chapter of this group.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know that now you found out about this a little over a week ago. I know that you've been chomping at the bit to share it with everyone. We wanted to do it.
It took a lot to eat that and hold it and not share it. So yeah. I will say you and Felipe were big in kind of pulling me back because I was ready. Here we go. The fucking logo.
Yeah. You know, Henry's like, let me go in and post it immediately. Like, why don't we be strategic?
I'm ready to fucking print up stickers and everything. Just, you know, but
yeah.
I get excited, man. This stuff is you know, it took a life of its own on, and you know, it's special to me, and it's special to a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great. This has been I think an online home, as much as you can say that, for a lot of people who just love baseball. I started out, in full disclosure, joining a previous group so I can peddle my writing shit. At the time, I wrote for a website, getting paid for the article. And in an effort to increase my traffic, I joined the group. Same as we see so many bloggers now. I know that caused a controversy, but the difference was that I felt like I needed to interact, right, as well as share my articles. And eventually it just became the interact part because the articles were no longer. And now, you know what, you know, I'm in a podcast with the founder. So it's very much a community for a lot of us. And we encourage your participation, and obviously you're listening.
I will say something else. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a bit, but you guys know me. I wear my emotions right here. We are working with Ozzie Guillen Jr. On a collaborative, maybe podcast with their baseball group, Mi Vida Baseball. So, you know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you know, they still have good content, but, you know, we're working collaboratively with him. We spoke with him. So, you know, maybe we'll have him as a guest on our show, and we'll be a guest on his show. We'll see what happens, but we'll do something.
And you touched on a very important segue into our final segment of the night, which I will get into here. Yes, so we have been doing these podcasts now for a little over a month. It's been about 5 weeks now. When we started them, I think it was made very clear that we do this mainly as an extra source of entertainment, an extra source of news sharing, an extra source of just discussion. You know, we have the posts and those are fine. We started the podcast so you can get to know us a little bit better. But this was never meant to be, you know, an admin fest or anything like that. I think that there's room in the future one day for other people to get involved. But like Henry just alluded to, we want to share more with, you know, we want to have more guests. We want to make it just not be the two of us speaking. We are working on that behind the scenes as far as having both guests just straight out of baseball life who we think can offer something to whatever the topics are, as well as some other guests that, you know, we'll hopefully reveal in the future. But the main thing is that we have, and when I say we, I mean all of the people involved in creating the podcast. There are about 18 of us. We've kind of taken a step back to evaluate, you know, how's it doing and, you know, how we can improve. We're always looking to improve. And what we've kind of decided out of that is I think that the best approach right now is to kind of scale back a little bit. So what we've decided sort of unanimously is that we're going to cut some of the current podcasts. One of them, I'll talk about the baseball ones for now, more updates in the future. But as far as it pertains to baseball life, we are going to unfortunately cut Rack of Ribby, as well as Above the Dugout. So you'll only see me now, unless I'm as a guest or a guest host, you'll only see me now in Dong City. Matt is going to concentrate full-time on the lab. The Rack of Ribby guys did a great job. I mean, there's nothing against either of the other shows. It's nothing about a talent selection or anything like that. We just felt that this show, you know, with Henry Accessible in particular, would be the kind of news show. And Sean and Felipe will remain in their show, and they're going to offer kind of the fantasy aspect. So we think instead of having 4 shows, we wanted to cut it back down to 2, have one that's kind of the sports talk like this, have the other one that's exclusively fantasy, but do more with those shows, more guests, more visuals, more kind of segments as we get along, as we get more comfortable. I think it's important to remember too, that a lot of us do not have experience podcasting. There's a few of us who have been in the industry, if you will, but most of us haven't. So we're still trying to improve. We're still trying to get better. Your interaction in the comment section helps that across the board. And hopefully we're providing some entertainment to you as well. So Baseball Life will have 2 podcasts for the foreseeable future. This one, Dong City, as well as Total Bases with Sean Flannery and Felipe Malicio. And so those are the updates as far as Baseball Life goes. As we get closer to the season, we will probably both be on once a week. So you're still going to get probably 2 shows a week, but it's only going to be those 2 shows. So we definitely encourage you to keep joining with us. We just, in case you missed it, launched Ball is Life, their first podcast. That's Leon and Jacob.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too.
So our goal is to kind of have this, you know, these podcasts be owning each of the groups. Baseball Life is big enough where we can have 2, and they're 2 very distinct shows. The other groups, obviously, like I said, there will be updates. We're not ready to make those right now, but that's kind of what we're looking at. And that, you know, that's really just based on kind of both feedback and observations and whatnot, and polling numbers and everything like that, if you will. So that's the update. Look for more of that. You don't want to overwhelm you with too many.
I just want to say we do want more guests from the actual group. While having outside guests are cool, I think having guests from the group is cooler. I think that's more genuine.
Priority number 1 for sure.
Our goal is our meat and potatoes. That's our people. So, you know, I wanna have Omar. I wanna have Sean on the show. You know, who we rip for being the older guys, but they know what they're talking about. I want to have Joey on the show. I want to have Rob on the show. You know, I want to have different people on the show with us. Just having fun, man, you know. So
the great thing about Baseball Life is we've got almost every fan base, probably every fan base represented. The volume obviously fluctuates, but there's going to be so many times during the season when we're going to want to talk to a fan of a certain team, or to review a game, that type of stuff. And even being on once a week may not be enough, but we're going to do it because everyone has lives, including the hosts. There's only so much we can do. But yeah, so I mean, look out for that. If you guys have an interest in doing this, like, definitely come forward and let us know. This is not meant to be dominated by just Henry and I, or Sean and Felipe, or anything like that.
Although this is a pretty face for
I mean, Henry's beautiful. I have a deep voice, so that's obviously why we have these seats. But the rest of you, we can work with you.
Right.
So yeah. So I mean,
like the logo over someone's face who isn't so,
Yeah, right. We'll just cut your camera if you don't cut it. But other than that, we'd love to have you. So definitely feel free to share with us. We may not be able to fit you in like immediately, depending on what the show is, but we'll definitely work with you and try and make that happen. So those are your updates. The big updates. We have a new logo, which is great. We have a podcast realignment, if you will, hopefully more successful than the MLB one would be. And that's where we're at. So thank you for joining us. This has been a very jam-packed session of Dong City. We will be back in 2 weeks. So February 26th, that should be right into the heart of spring training by then. And then from then we can kind of discuss how often we'll go after that. But for right now, we'll see you in 2 weeks, February 24th. And look forward to the lab on Wednesday, which, as far as I know, is the next show. I apologize if I'm screwing someone over again.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're usually like a 6:15-ish start time. So they'll look out for that in Food Life. There's our logo. I'm Vince Mercanetti. I've been alongside Henry Maldonado. Have a great night.
Dong City, bitches.